there are people in your life that you look up to as role models, and you usually look to them from afar. You probably don't know them personally. And you usually look to one aspect, their talent, their perceived personal life, or something like that. And this lady that is going to speak with us today actually is someone that I happen to know personally. And not only does she have, yes, an amazing talents, but an amazing personal life. And I have gotten the luxury to see her walk her journey. Wonderful watercolor artist. And we're going to get to that in a minute about her talent and how accomplished she is. But first, let's talk about her amazing story of healing. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and amazing artist, Michele Struss, here to talk about her miracle healing and to inspire you today. Thank you, Michele, for being here today.
Thank you for the accolades. All glory belongs to the Lord for any good or strength anyone may see in my story. So my story goes, I was born with a form of dwarfism known as spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita, more commonly known as SED congenita. And SED affects the growth plates of the bones and thus resulting in the short stature. So I stand only 3'10". And though my height is what people see first about me, my bigger problem is all the orthopedic problems that come with SED congenita. So hip and spine problems are the characteristics of SEDs. I've had 2 cervical spinal fusions and about 15 hip operations. I've been at OR somewhere around 30 times. I've honestly lost count. And in spite of all those operations, my walking has always been very poor. I was always put in what's called a spica cast, so like a body cast from my chest down to my toes. And I would be in that for about 10 weeks. You don't sit, you don't walk. And that was after every single surgery. I came out of that cast after being away for college for 4 years. I stayed an extra year away from home, had so much fun out in Pennsylvania. The doctor came in my room that night after I got out of that cast, so happy. Life was going to be mine again. I went from such an independent life to living incredibly dependent in that cast. You do nothing for yourself. And he came in with my x-rays and said, the bone's not healed at all. And he held up my x-ray, and where he had cut that bone and where we were waiting for the past 10 weeks for it to heal, it hadn't healed at all. And the next day I was scheduled for surgery. He took me back in, had a bone graft, and I was put back in another cast for another 2.5, 3 months. It was a total of 5.5 months flat on my back. But I share that quickly to say that's when the rubber met the road and my faith became my own. Unfortunately, 1 year later, I fell and I broke my shattered that hip. So that surgery that I was in the cast for 5.5 months, it was for nothing, is how it felt. But I believe it was to grow my faith. And after using crutches for 13 years, God enabled me to burn them. It was a long, slow process, but little by little, I was seeing baby steps, and so exciting in the things that I could do that I was never able to do. And I got to where I was just walking with a cane, and half the time I was carrying that cane. I wasn't even really using it for support. And in front of 100 family and friends here in our way backyard, my dad built a big fire pit, and one at a time, I threw my crutches into that fire and watched them burn. And my surgeon, for 28 years, he was my surgeon up to that point. He was there. He drove up from Maryland. I live in New Jersey. And he shared with the people, he said, there are many great doctors, but there's only one healer. The healer is the Lord above us, and we must acknowledge that.
Wow, Michele. That I can just imagine that moment when you threw those crutches into the fire and everyone there, and just an amazing testimony. But what I love particularly about your story is that it doesn't end there. There's a sequel to the miracle, and there's also a lesson and multiple lessons and multiple things from us to take from this and be encouraged. Is that, you've lived on the mountaintop, you've lived in the valley, you've lived in between, and you've kept your faith and you've kept with God. And so I would love for you to now encourage the person who is going there and saying, that's great, but I'm not seeing my miracle, Michele. How come the healing's not for me? And I think that you have an answer for that, because your story does not end there, and yet you have kept your enduring faith. So tell me a little bit about that.
So yes, the story does continue. 6 years after I burned my crutches, I fell and I broke my pelvic bone. And I broke it on the side where I have a hip replacement. Very, very long story short, I had lots of empty answers, a lot of inability. I had to go back on crutches while that fracture, that break healed. But I've had 4 surgeries since then. 13 years has passed since then, and I am still fully dependent on crutches. The Lord spoke a promise to me in the beginning. It was about a year after I fell and broke the pelvis. And he revealed my healing that was to come. And Isaiah 46, 9 and 11, he says, I am God and there is none like me. I have said what I would do and I will do it. And so I live every day with hope. My story is not over. And if I can be real with you, I wouldn't change my story. I would not like to relive the hard parts at all. But it is the hard parts that have made me the woman that I am. And more importantly, the hard parts are the reason that I know God the way that I do. And Kristen, that's priceless. That's my heartbeat.
That's so awesome, Michele, because I'm just sitting here, like just overwhelmed. I get goosebumps just hearing what you're saying. And it's fresh on my mind. I was thinking about how I was just talking to somebody the other day about how suicide rates have gone up, and it's clear if this woman can go through all this and cling to God and have such a beauty about her spirit, then it's that shows you how real God is and how real his comfort is and how real all of those things are. And it's just beyond inspiring.
I've been given incredible grace in choosing, but we all have a choice. Our hard circumstances, they could be stumbling blocks or stepping stones. And something quickly, one of my favorite sayings is life is 20% what happens to us and 80% how we respond. And I'm incredibly thankful for the grace that God has given me to choose. Have I always chosen right? Absolutely not. I am human. I fall, I fail. But I just praise him for the times he's given me the strength to choose him and to choose more.
Wow. There's nothing that can be added to all that you're saying. It's so, it's just hits so deeply. And I know that everyone watching is feeling the same way. So now I want to just talk a little bit about your artwork, because God has given you a lot of gifts, including your faith. I mean, that is no small gift. But he also uses you as an artist to paint with watercolors. And I'm not even going to try to explain it. I want you to explain one of your paintings, because you've just done so many wonderful things. And I try to tell people all the time about your paintings. And I'm like, it really looks like someone took a picture. It's incredible how, I mean, I can do stick figures. That's about it. That's where my talent is. And that,
I can't sing.
oh, well,
And you can.
God has given you such a gift. Please just tell us a little bit about that and one of your paintings.
Yeah, 100% gift. My business and my ministry, it's called His Paintbrush because I see God as the artist. I'm just a tool in his hand. You don't praise Michelangelo's paintbrushes. It's the creator. It's God. You can't make a mistake with watercolors, oils, and acrylics. You can keep painting on top of it, And with watercolors, you can't hide a mistake. So I never wanted to paint people. And I got to where my flowers and my pretty paintings were not fulfilling. And so I asked God, I want purpose in my work. Use my gift. And his answer came inspiring me to paint people. So the first painting I did was this painting, My Hero. And it was inspired by someone very close to my heart. And he often calls me his hero for the strength that he sees in my life. Here was this guy's hero, myself, fallen on the ground as a little girl, and her crutches beside her. But behind her was her source of strength, and it's Jesus. I was so inspired, Kristen, and went to my studio to paint it. And after investing close to 100 hours, I ruined it in one night, overshadowing the little girl's face. Cried myself silly, started again, invested probably 80 hours in a second one, ruined that one, overshadowing Jesus's robe in a place that was to be very sunlit. Long story short, I put it away for several months, got models, photographed my models, started over, and the third painting flowed. And that was the first of many paintings with people.
Wow. So besides your faith, which goes in with this, your tenacity, that persistence. I mean, when you just talk about 80 hours, one painting, that's anybody who does any sort of artistic anything can think to themselves, wow, I think I would have given up after 10 hours. So that's amazing. And the fruit of that and the story behind it and the meaning, that is just amazing, Michele. So, and hispaintbrush.com, is that your?
Yes, ma'am.
Website? What is a word that you would say would describe your journey?
My journey has been rich, deep, just rich. So much value has come through struggle, and so much beauty, so much worth. So that's the word I'm going to use, rich.
That is an amazing word. And in true, brilliant artistic fashion, that is like the most out of the box. I love it. I love that word. And I love your story and just all that you represent. And I know you have blessed and inspired so many and will continue to do so. And thank you for sharing a little bit of your time and heart today. Appreciate you so much. And thank you for being a personal role model for me.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for listening to my story.